So we're going to get into the review. This is the segment that we're going to get into our review, and I'm going to give my opening thoughts. I'll let Sasha give her opening thoughts, and we will dive deeper into this episode because, oh my God, a lot happened. It's crazy. So I'll give my thoughts first because they're a little more blurry, and I'll let Sasha go a little more in depth. We are getting into the thick of it now. I love the detective. I know you said it in your review, Sasha, the feel. Yeah. It's like the detective, like kind of, because each show has had kind of a theme to it,
Yeah, a vibe.
A vibe. We're into the detective with this one, like, kind of I said in my review, like the true detective kind of X-Files type vibes. You said Mindhunter type vibes. I love that. I really do. I think the finale, like kind of action sequence in the supermarket is awesome. And a thing I really liked was we really started to learn more about Loki as a like a superhero god, because we've never had that much alone time with the character of Loki. So like a lot of the time, we're learning about all of our heroes, what they can do, what their abilities are. Like in Ragnarok, like Thor, we learn like what Thor is able to do, his final form, his ability. We get to learn that here in Loki. Not as much. We're still learning, but even when he's in the huddle with like the group of TVA agents, he's like, "Oh no, this is actually this, and they're two different things, and this is how this works." I'm like, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. So I really liked that, and then of course, the finale. I feel like, and I know that some of these were filmed at different times, so it could have been before, but like they're getting better at their cliffhangers. Like WandaVision was trash, and I'll say that. And if you take that out of context, if you're just jumping in, I mean the cliffhangers, not the show, the cliffhangers. The cliffhangers in WandaVision were trash. They were terrible. You did not know when to cut it off at the right time. Falcon and the Winter Soldier got significantly better, especially the end of episode 1 was absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Loki, the first 2, have not missed so far. And this one in particular is by far the best of any Marvel show we've gotten so far. I dig it, but we're going to get more in depth about it. I'm going to hand it over to you, Sasha. I'm going to see what your thoughts are about this.
So my thoughts are, I think the initial excitement of like having that first episode over, and I rewatched it between when we like did our live last week and this one. So I feel like I got a really good grasp of like what everything that was addressed in that episode. Now I really want to go back and rewatch this episode because I feel like the information dump in a good way. Like, and that's what I talked about in my review, was that the way the information was presented was we were learning things along with the characters. So it didn't feel like it's just like, oh yeah, you remember Mobius, that time off screen where we were talking about this and blah, blah, blah. Like they're testing theories and things in real time for us to see as an audience and learn along with them, which I think is super excellent. And I totally agree. The cliffhangers have both been fantastic, and they've been presented in a way that I think this show really understands what television can do for the MCU, because there's been a lot of like discussion about, it used to be a drama was 45 minutes if it was an hour long, and then the sitcom was 22 to 23 minutes with 30 minutes if you add for commercials and stuff. I think WandaVision relied a little too heavily on that. Like it used the sitcom mode and genre like very creatively, but then they stuck a little too hard in the editing with that time frame. And then with Winter Soldier, they had pretty consistently like an hour-long episode, 50-ish minutes. Here, I know this one is only like 2 minutes longer than the first one, but I totally agree. I think the extra time in the editing room for this one is definitely being felt. Like, I'm not saying these were major changes. It could have been this way before either of the other shows released, but I just feel like they're learning from their mistakes as each of them go, listening to feedback, which I think is really nice to know that something that we all love is listening to us, our complaints, our concerns about the program. And I just loved how this episode really focused on Mobius and Loki's dynamic, which I guess we'll get into when we get into more of the spoilers later. I think that has the potential to carry this show for at least like 2 or 3 seasons. Like, and that's, I'm just really hoping, and I said this in my review, so don't want to sound like a broken record if anyone has seen it, but like, I think this one is going to be like the one that's the first like multi-season, just because I feel like Falcon and Winter Soldier, they don't want to like Captain America is such a big figure, they don't want to like waste him on TV. And they've already announced the 4th film, but I think this Loki has the potential to just keep going in TV form. And like you said, there's such a good precedent of detective TV shows and like buddy comedy TV shows. This has all of those elements plus the Marvel stuff. And because it exists in this realm where time doesn't function the same way, they don't have to really abide by the rules. They can kind of use it as their filler if there's mistakes other places, but still be intentional about it. So that's what I loved about this episode. I think it just continued what I loved about the first one, but really emphasized like this is what we're trying to achieve with this show. So, but you're still like on your toes the whole time.
Absolutely, and I mean, I couldn't have said it by myself. I mean, it's just great breakdown by Sasha. But it's going back to your point about like the multi-seasonal thing. That's definitely something that's going to happen. I don't think they have set it up. You don't bring in Owen Wilson to do 1 6-episode run.
Yeah,
that's not happening. And I know it's not just you and me. I think it's probably pretty close to a general consensus that he is already a fan favorite character. You're not bringing him in just for that. That ain't happening. And now I know it's the MCU and they can bring in all the big people and just kind of use them at their will. But when you make a fan favorite character, they ain't going anywhere. So I completely agree with what you're saying. But let's get into spoilers. This is what is a spoiler review. Where do you want to start? Do you just want to start at the back? I mean, do we just...
Yeah, let's work from the back to the yeah, let's do it that way.
All right, well, we're going right from the back. Holy Mother of God, Lady Loki has entered the chat. Lady Loki's entered the chat, y'all. What a great reveal. I think the tension that was there, because Loki is fighting, you know, as Lady Loki is, you know, taking over these other people, they're fighting each other, and Loki's having this conversation, and we think, it's just another Loki, you know, it's just another random Loki guy. Then the hood comes off, we see it's Lady Loki, and I'm like, holy mother of God, oh my God. And there are theories, and we'll talk about those in a little bit, but just the way that they set up the next episode, we don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah. It's
so great, but I want to get your thoughts. What are your thoughts on this final, I'd say maybe 10 minutes of the episode, because I think it's absolutely fantastic.
I think it's great. I think the way that they build, and I didn't even think about it until now, but all of the people that she like goes into, with the exception of the TVA agent, are all men. So that's definitely, like you were saying, like all the variants they showed in their huddle were men or male versions of Loki. And like, I mean, I think we all as fans kind of knew, and that's why I think this reveal so early is so great, because I'm definitely on board for things when it's like, ooh, we don't know who the masked hooded figure is, like they're going, because I think that builds a lot of suspense, and I think you can reveal that too early and it'd be a problem. Here, I think it would be like, okay, if we're gonna go for like 5 more episodes and be like, it's just another dude Loki, like we don't really want to have to deal with that. I am super interested in where that's gonna go. I think the last 10 minutes was fantastic. I think trying to figure out the plan of what's going on, and trying to like, I think the great thing about having like Loki in a show by yourself is you're trying to figure out like what his presented good guy role is, but you're also trying to figure out like what his other motive is, like behind
what his allegiances are. What is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Really are. Yeah.
Right. Like, is he saying to Lady Loki like, oh, I want to help you, I'm trying to double cross the TVA, because he's actually trying to double cross the TVA? I don't believe that either, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But like, I think that was such a good reveal, just to have her take off the hood, only say a few words just to give you a little taste of what's to come. But yeah, like I think the way that this left us was with pretty much no idea what's gonna happen next I like it, because it deviates from the first episode, because that was kind of closed and contained of like, okay, like we've got all our information on Loki, there's something else going on. Now this one, it's like he followed her, like, okay, where are we going next? Because the show's called Loki, it's not called Mobius, so we know we're gonna be with him. So like I thought it was an excellent finale to the episode, but I loved everything building up to it too.
Yeah, and I think it like you said, the first episode was really contained. The second episode was pretty contained as well. And it's not even just the setting, it's also the people he's with. It's contained, like market because he's with the TVA people. He ain't going anywhere. So like have that sense of just being contained, being not really kind of claustrophobic, like not really able to do anything because he's, you know, always surrounded by the TVA and things like that. He goes into this portal.
Right. There's more options.
Now we're in a whole new world now. So it's just, I'm so excited to see where they go with this because, you know, not only is he off on the run now, but elephant in the room, all hell is about to break loose.
Yes.
With the sacred timeline in the TVA, because another spoiler for y'all that haven't seen it, she sets off, I call them time bombs. I know that's not really what they are, but I just
it's a good term.
She just sends all of these like time bombs into everywhere, and oh my god, what is going to happen? Perfect way to set up more seasons. That's all I'm gonna say. We'll get into that.
Exactly.
We'll get into that in theories later, but how we hit our catastrophe in the second episode.
Yeah.
And I think that's perfect pacing. I think that's perfect.
So too.
Because we are only getting one episode a week. So it's like, get to the point. Get to the point, and then let's see how we're going to fix it. That was a strategic choice that they made, and I really, really liked it because now all hell's broken loose. I wouldn't say we've reached our climax because obviously we've got 4 episodes left, but we've reached a really, really big tipping off point for the rest of this series. What are your thoughts on all of that?
I think for that, I hadn't thought about it that exact way, but I totally agree because I think the thing I was thinking was like, okay, when we've been presented with Miss Minutes in the first episode telling us like, hey, like we're like, there's a threat of a multiverse if we don't like do our jobs and stuff. I was like, I really don't want the last shot of this show to be Loki and Mobius having defeated this Loki variant and looking at each other like, well, crap, we didn't do it right. And like seeing that line like go up and hit the multiverse level. And then just that be like the ending of the show, just because I'd be like, okay, it would make sense to say like, this is how we achieve the multiverse for then Doctor Strange and Madness. But I was like, I just feel like that's too high stakes to leave the show off with. Also, it wouldn't be much explanation. So I honestly feel like now makes sense. And I will now be interested to see how this fits in the timeline. And I briefly touched on this in my video and then had to cut it out because I like didn't complete the thought. But I think this series is going to be like we keep being told time runs differently here. Time runs differently here. It's for all time, always. Like we're still trying to figure out the sacred timeline. So I kind of have this belief that this show, and we talked about this a little bit last week, this show, potentially No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness will be occurring somewhat in the same like human years, like Avengers years. Those will occur at the same time just because I think it would be potential for this to like complete the multiverse and then somehow see that show up in Multiverse of Madness of like, okay, here's what happened on Earth while you guys were in the TVA trying to figure out and solve this stuff on a high above level. Let's go back to down to the ground level, because I think that's what the MCU is trying to manage at this point. We have these really spacey, like all-powerful things that exist in the universe now. The Eternals, the TVA, Wanda can create basically an alternate reality sort of situation with the Hex. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. But then we also have our Falcon and the Winter Soldier who are running around, you know, just trying to like deal with the diplomatic side of things. Yeah, exactly. Deal with like foreign relations. So like having both sides of those are so essential to what the MCU is, but I think it will be a balancing game for the rest of the MCU of like back and forth. So that's I agree with you. I think it's great pacing. I think it's great that we're getting to the point. I also makes me feel as a viewer that they're extremely confident with what they have planned, because to reveal something like that, like you could hold your cards on that for 6 episodes. You really could, and write around it, beat around the bush, have a big like exposition dump in the last like, multiverse, we're screwed. But like the fact that they're giving it to us now makes me feel like the twists and turns they're gonna take to like do the rest of the season is like, this isn't even the best thing that we have planned.
Yeah, I mean that cliffhanger literally could have been the cliffhanger for the end of the season.
It could.
It literally, like they could have, but they gave it to us at the end of episode 2. And I will say, I was sneaky last week. in our theory section, I said, oh yeah, this is going to be what starts off the multiverse, because I'd already seen this episode.
Yeah, you'd already knew.
So I was like, oh, well, this is how it's going to start the multiverse. But yeah, I mean, I love that they made that decision, because it is, like you said, completely just echoing what you said. The best is yet to come. This is only the first thing, which means we still have 4 episodes of like, what is going on? So I'm I love everything about that. That finale in general, just seeing like, you know, we get the scene with the monitor, just like with all the timelines splitting off, and then it's just like, oh, it's over. And I'm like,
yeah,
that is how you do it. That's how you do it.
And they're all freaking out and like running around like crazy. And I think like, I just think there's so many options of how they want to explore it now. If they contain it one by one and they're hopping around, if they go to this huge event with the timekeepers and like shut it all down, like there's so many options of how to fix it, and there's just so much story like options and potential there. So I think that's what has me excited for the rest of the season. Not that I didn't love this episode, but it did such a great job of being an entertaining episode and also like the spark for the rest of the season.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And they're going to fail. They're going to, because Secret Wars is coming. Secret Wars is coming. They teased a multiversal war, is I believe what Miss Minute said. That's Secret Wars. Secret Wars is coming. The Russo brothers are going to come back to direct Secret Wars. It's going to be the next Infinity War and Endgame. It's going to happen. So I'm sorry, guys, if you want them to win, they're not. It's going to fail. But I just head over heels, just so impressed by what they've been able to accomplish. Even a week later, I'm like, what did they do? What did they do? So it's just absolutely fantastic. But let's talk about some of the other stuff we liked. I loved the conversations with. I love the sleuthing. I love the detective work.
I do too.
We already kind of covered that. I love watching Loki, because I don't think people give Loki enough credit. I think they think he's kind of dumb. He's not very smart, and that's kind of how he's been written. Granted, that he's not the smartest, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he's pretty smart. And watching him, and now who knows? Again, time works differently at the TVA. He could have been there for a year and a half, but for him to figure out where Loki's hiding, Lady Loki's hiding, that sequence, that montage was just so much fun to watch. So, and I know you talked a lot about it in your review as well, but I just want to get your thoughts here. I mean, I know you liked that. I mean, what did you like so much about it?
I like it for the same reason as you. Like, I think people have a very easy time writing off Loki as like, oh, you just like liking the hot bad guy, or you just like the fact that he's, or like just writing him off as a character that's only after power, which like, yeah, that's obviously been a lot of his gain and stuff, but people writing him off as like, he's so dumb, he doesn't understand like how much of a pawn he is in this whole like the Infinity Saga. Like, he is the first like pawn that Thanos sends out in his like eventual war to conquer everything. So like he's literally a pawn, and I think people can dismiss him really easily to just be like, well, he's just a lame villain, and he's like sort of like, he just tricks everyone, and like, oh, they kill him and bring him back, and kill him and bring him back, and blah blah blah. So it's easy to dismiss him. But I love getting to spend the time with him that we do, because like, again, I can't like express enough how much 2013 and 2014 like Tumblr like MCU people that have like formed like fan opinion of like who Loki is, and like drawn from the comics, and like been like, no, like this is who he is, and that obviously is like something you take to the theater with you, and you're like, oh yes, like he would totally do this. But I feel like in this show, all of that has been written into his character, and like Tom Hiddleston is actually like performing that out because he has the time in the room to do that. Like, he's the shining star, and he's like the main person. And I totally agree. Like, I think the smart stuff is like, you think that because he's a trickster, that's plans always get foiled because he's like the bad guy, like that, oh yeah, he's not really as smart as he like is cracked up to be. But in this, like, if he was, it's almost one of those things where it's like, if you use your powers for good, they'd be so much stronger, but because you use them for evil, like, you're ultimately going to be defeated. So I think for like Loki, like, it's almost like he's been put in a box and been like, you can create as much chaos in this box as you want to, but like there's rules. So like Mobius has him like working overtime to like accomplish something. And I love the constant like reference to the timekeepers and getting an audience for them. You can very much see like what is motivating him to help, which I think makes it feel like, oh, they're not just writing him to be like Mobius's like henchman. Like he's doing this because he's got free will, and they even have that great conversation about free will and stuff like at the lunch table. But yeah, I think I just really like spending time with the characters, and because I think when there's big action pieces, not that those aren't well written or well directed, but you don't get to feel the story as much, the motivations of the characters. But like that shot when he reads the file about Asgard being destroyed in Ragnarok, and he has almost the same reaction as when he sees himself die in the first episode. Like that tells you so much more about that character than you ever need to know in any other scene. So that's what I love about like spending quiet time with them in the TVA sleuthing in the library.
Yeah, and I was literally going to bring that scene up that you just mentioned, and I'll give my thoughts on that as well. I love that we are getting emotional sad boy Loki. I love it.
Yes.
I know it sounds bad, but I love it. Because if you really think about it, of really anyone in the MCU, Loki is kind of one of the most misunderstood characters when it comes to emotion, because we are always seeing him as this madman that is just out for anger, and we touch on this a lot in the first episode. Like, you know, we had that conversation with Mobius, but we get to see that even further here. It wasn't just a one-off. He wasn't just putting on a show. Like, he sees this file of the people of Asgard, who he always talked down to, always thought were smaller than him, but then he sees what happens, and he's like, nah, deep down, like, that hurts.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I know we're going to get more of that too, because in that trailer that everyone was like, oh my God, it's Natasha, they're on Vormir, which it's not. It's Lady Loki. Sorry. I'm sorry to break your heart. But that looks like, I would bet you that's a scene where he's talking to her and like, yo, it ain't all it's cropped up to be, you know? I don't know. It's just a guess, but
yeah,
we're going to get more of that. And I like that because, again, it all comes back to kind of what we've both been talking about, is that Loki really has just been the side piece. I wanted to try to find a proper way to say that. He's always been the side piece. He really has been. He's never had we don't know, like, we think we know him, but we really don't, because there hasn't really been any kind of characterization of his character. So I love that happens. I love that we're getting this opportunity, because he is a lot of people's favorite villain. But is he really? Like, once we really dive into who he is as a person, is he really a villain, or is he just a misunderstood pawn that has had a really tough life, has, you know, identity issues, and is just kind of letting it all out? And I think there's a lot of depth here, and I really like the way that they're writing this. And there's depth in all of these shows. You know, I will on WandaVision as much as I want, because I think it is extremely overrated and extremely hyped for a show that it is. I still gave it an 88, so y'all calm the heck down. But it does open up a very interesting conversation about grief. I talked about that in my review. I love that they went down that path. Falcon and Winter Soldier, it talks a lot about race and seeing, you know, a black man be Captain America, and the world that especially our country is living in today. It talks a lot about those themes. And then it also talks about PTSD, trauma, trying to get over, you know, trying to get over your own personal battles with Bucky. And now here, you know, we're getting, you know, just someone that is dealing with identity issues and just all different types of just mental things. And Marvel does a great job at, one, making it for kids. I mean, the kids won't understand the deeper meanings for all of that stuff,
right?
But for the adults, like a you or a me or anyone else that can truly appreciate the writing that is being done here and the characterization for the character. And I, again, love that, because it really, really it's just fantastic. The writing here is so good.
It really is such strong writing, and I love that we're able to see that in the TV shows, because TV, even though now it's way more cinematic than it's ever been, like, TV is definitely like a writer's medium. So getting to have them shine in that way is really exciting. But I also think, and I only just want to touch on this just because it popped into my head. I remember when Walking Dead first started, and somebody said, like, why would you want to watch a show about like zombies? And it was like, it's about the people who are living through these circumstances and how they react to that. It's not about like the zombies so much. It like that's just the sprinkling, the icing on the cake. And I feel like with Marvel, I feel very strongly the same way. Like this, people who really love Marvel are not, obviously we love the superhero side, but we're not just diehard superhero fans. We like it because of the way these characters have, like, we've grown with these characters. We've seen their arcs. We've seen the decisions they've made that may or may not reflect like our own in a similar type situation. Like I always say, they're ordinary people in spectacular circumstances, or like extraordinary circumstances or whatever. And I think like with Loki, with the fact that he's been a secondary character this whole time, like he's been interesting because we as fans have been able to make up things that we want about him because we haven't seen it on screen. But now we're really getting to spend like true canonical time with him and see like who he really is as a character. And I totally agree. And I think the other reason that scene is so important is to remind us, like, the Loki that we have seen in the entire sacred timeline thus far is like, those are things that are supposed to happen, but we've experienced them. So like we know about Ragnarok. So the first time that gets brought up this episode, we're like, oh yeah, Ragnarok, when we think of the whole movie. But like he is a 2012 Loki looking at something that would have happened 5 years ish in the future for him that he's never experienced. Like imagine just being told about something that would have happened to you that you've in some way been able to escape. Like that is just so, I don't know, it was just that reminder of like he doesn't know these things that we're used to. Like the way we would explain it to a friend is not a way Loki would understand his own experience as Loki. And so like, I don't know, I just think all of that being written in that one scene and the way that Tom Hiddleston has performed every single moment of this show has just been spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any complaints so far. I really don't. And now, is it going to get 100 out of 100 when I review it? No. You know, there's obviously little flaws that we can nitpick, and I will once the series ends. But if we're talking overarching general complaints so far in the first 2 episodes, I don't have any. I really don't. I think the performances are stellar. I think the writing is absolutely amazing, and the way that they're able to humanize this god and this mischievous guy. And you know, it's like you talked a lot about Sasha, you know, the set design and the vibe that they've made through that, and the costumes and in everything through that. I mean, it's just all done so meticulously, so carefully, and it's just so damn good. And guys, we really haven't even had any action yet. We had like one tiny little scene at the end of episode 2, which really wasn't even a fight. It was Loki getting his ass kicked. So it's like, and if this is the best that we've gotten so far, and there hasn't really been any action yet, that's just a testament to how good the writing and directing and everything else really is. Because I've seen a consensus so far. It's a lot of people's favorites so far in the first 2 episodes. So it's just a testament to Marvel and how much they're able to do. So I really enjoyed it. Do you have any closing thoughts? I don't think we're gonna make this review, you know, an hour long, but what are your closing thoughts?
I think I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say. I really do just enjoy, I really want to rewatch this episode because I made a joke about it in my video, but like the amount of time travel information that I have, like just swirling my head, trying to figure it out, like how everything is going on. Like there's just all this stuff. So I'm trying to figure that out. And yeah, I just think this series, like for all the reasons we've said, the dialogue is fantastic. The character growth is fantastic. Like I just really enjoy going to all these new places with the MCU, but the way that they've been able to make it, like you said, with the central team, Mobius and Loki's team, like making it feel contained, making it feel like we're still in the TVA even when we're in a 1985 Renaissance fair or Roxcart in 2050 in Alabama, which if anyone ever sees a Roxcart company crop up after this, we all need to be warned that something's gonna happen. So like no, I'm excited just to see where the rest of this series goes. I think for this episode, I really liked it. I'm just like almost in shock still at like everything that happened.
Yeah, I completely echo. The possibilities now are truly endless. Where's he going? He's gonna follow Lady Loki, but where are they going? Where's Mobius? Where are they gonna end up? I mean, the freaking multiverse is coming now, and I want it. So, like, what's going to happen there? I want to see the timekeepers, or the lizards, as Loki calls
I know.
I'm very excited to see how this all plays out because, you know, Feige never caps. You know, there's no cap when Kevin, which is so funny because he always wears a baseball cap. But there's no cap. There's no cap when he says
that's the only cap.
That's the only cap that Feige's got. There's no cap with Kevin Feige. When he says something, you gotta listen because he said this show was going to be the most consequential of any show so far. He ain't capping. He's right. We're in episode 2, and stuff's already happening. So I'm very excited. Episode 3, I'm gonna get to experience it with everyone now. It's gonna be so much fun. But yeah, I mean, those are my final thoughts. But